Welcome to On the Chain. This is Jeff here with our co-host Chip. I guess there's an important football game going on with the Bills versus the Chiefs. So I'll have fun watching that game. In the meantime, we're going to get into some cryptocurrency. We're going to look at Ripple XRP, maybe not. We're going to look at what exactly did Hinman do? When did he do it? Why did he do it? We're going to defer to attorney John Deaton on that one. We're going to look at some of the tweets that he put out, specifically referencing Hinman and the Fed. Is the Fed right? A digital dollar is better than crypto? The crypto, the Fed, and a digital dollar. This is going to be kind of crazy. A lot of things to cover. We're going to dive deep into all of these things. And even with MicroStrategy right now, seems like they're getting pummeled by the SEC. What is going on with all of that? What are they up to? We're going to find out. If you guys are ready to start, I'm ready to go. So let's kick this thing off. Ready? Let's go.
Welcome to On the Chain.
Welcome to On the Chain. Welcome, everybody. Give a quick shout out as you pop in. Let us know where you're from. And Vincent, no Simon, no Simon tonight. So Bills are taking precedent over that. Apparently, this is the first time ever, or at least in maybe the last few decades, that the Bills got anywhere close. I don't know. Anyhow, let's dive, Hans. Yeah, let's dive deep into this one. I want to start out tonight. We're going to go straight into one of John Deaton's tweets. Then we're going to go over to the Fed, and we're going to look at this report that the Fed released, and it looks like this long-awaited study that they've done on the digital dollar, and they're looking to say, hey, you know what? It looks like the digital dollar might be better than crypto, better than stable coins. Yet the Fed still references the idea that stable coins should continue and have the probability of continuing to exist only if there's a good regulatory framework. But there's big question marks all around that. So we want to discuss that. But let's first dig into this John Deaton tweet. First things first, let me pull up and share my screen. Let's make sure we have audio shared as well. Let's pick the right monitor, and then we're good to go. So I'm going to pull this over here, and then let's see if we can, let me see if I can expand my screen on this. First thing we're going to do is watch this short video clip that is here. It says, why Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies aren't securities. And this is coming from the SEC director. So this is where we're going to start. Then we're going to get into John Deaton's tweet thread, and we'll discuss that in a little bit more detail. So anyhow, you guys, okay, anyhow, here we go. Let's pop this up. Let's add it to the stream anytime now. Here we go. Okay. Let's make sure we can hear.
Bitcoin nor Ether would be considered securities and thus not under the purview of the SEC. Can you very briefly explain what your reasoning is?
Sure, Bob. These are complex facts and circumstances tests, but when we look at Bitcoin or if we look at Ether and the highly decentralized nature of the networks, we don't see a third-party promoter where applying the disclosure regime would make a lot of sense. So we're comfortable in some sort of viewing these as items that don't have to be regulated as securities.
Now, you also talked about initial coin offerings or ICOs, which are ways of...
So SEC Bitcoin and Ether are not securities. Hang on a second. Let's go back this up a little bit. Hang on a second. Here we go. Okay, let's play that again.
Centralized nature of the networks, we don't see a third-party promoter where applying the disclosure regime would make a lot of sense. So we're comfortable in some sort of viewing these as items that don't have to be regulated as securities.
Now, you also talked about initial coin offerings or ICOs, which are
Interesting.
ways of raising money using cryptocurrencies. Did you use a similar reasoning? You implied that most seem to be securities, ICOs, but some of them are not. Can you just show us what the difference is simply?
I wish we had a simple way to say this is in and this is out. As I mentioned, they're usually facts and circumstances tests. But a key factor is there a third-party promoter here who knows much more about the instrument than investors might? If that's the case, that's sort of a initial indicator that we might have a securities transaction. If people are buying it for investment and for a return and looking to that party for a return, then again, that's an indicia of a security. If you have, on the other hand, a token that's just used in the network for a good or service, and that's why people are buying it, and that service is available and up and running, not under development, then you may not have a security.
Interesting. So this is this gets really interesting as he's referencing, parts of the Howey test, and something that is significantly overlooked by Gary Gensler, as he completely ignores this idea that people are buying, for investment based off of the efforts of others. It's always just based on, the profits from the entity. And what he's saying here, if you're buying these assets with this idea of a good or service, then maybe it's not a security. But obviously there's so many, there's so much kind of surrounding these things. But as he went back in the beginning, he's referencing this idea of it being the decentralized networks. And so let's continue here. This is a really interesting clip. And after we get through this, we're going to go back and look at what John Deaton's points were on this.
Mr. Hinman, Kelly here. Just to be clear, does that mean if stocks didn't have a third-party promoter, they wouldn't be securities?
Well, as you know, Kelly, stocks represent an interest in an enterprise where there's a management team, and it's really, whenever you're buying a stock or a bond, you're relying on that management team. Those are the third-party efforts we're talking about, where someone is creating value for you, you're passive, and you're expecting their efforts to generate a return.
Which are the one of the key points of the Howey test. So if you're expecting return, you're getting a portion of it, and you're expecting the profit or to profit off of the efforts of that third party of others that are building that entity, then that's falls into the Howey test, which is what he's referencing. So it's interesting to hear this broken down, because the one thing, although he's kind of bringing all of this up, Gary Gensler takes a completely different approach on this, right? So, with Gary Gensler, it's so interesting because, his point, and he references this idea that there's clarity, and almost, he's like, what was the percent? Was he saying like 90%, 99%, 98%, whatever it is, of all of the cryptos out there are actually what? Oh, securities, per Gary Gensler. And Gary Gensler then, focuses on things from this enforcement perspective. Although he keeps referencing this idea that there's clarity, it's always the one of the pillars of the SEC is enforcement. And obviously there isn't. Now, and we're all looking at this. So he gives this presentation, references the wheeze, then it's personal opinion. Now he's back in on the media, right? Sitting there with the CNBC, anchors, and look at the title. The SEC weighs in on ICO offerings, and before that, weighing in on Bitcoin and Ethereum. This is labeled, right? So CNBC doesn't invite someone in and just say, hey, they would know ahead of time. They would have vetted all of this. There's no way that a government official is coming onto the media and doesn't vet the terminology and the subject matter enough to where they're actually able to label things. So the SEC is weighing in on these ICOs. Now it's very, specific in reference to the efforts of others, et cetera, everything that we know of the Howey test. Now, after the fact, as we move forward, and we'll dig into John Deaton, will give a, his tweets will give a very, specific point on this, but it becomes very obvious, so it's like, you have to question what is actually going on, behind the scenes when you see this type of information that's out there. Now, the one thing that so many within government, and these are elected officials, and now we're seeing appointed officials, those hired within government to do a job. They always go back and they have this intent that nobody's going to remember anything. And typically, unless they were actual media from back in the day when reporters actually reported and did their job, to investigate things, then they would go back and look at these and try to dig up information. Now, the one thing that all of these, current day, modern day, whatever we want to say, politicians, they'll never seem to grasp this idea that individuals will go back and look through video feeds and written feeds and come up with commentary on it. Now, it's interesting. All of this stuff has been, dredged up. Now it's all out there. So it's almost like, hey, well, we forgot it was out there, or, they talk or double speak over things as though no one is going to remember exactly how it was said, what was said. And this all becomes very critical in the scenario as it's developing. And obviously, we're seeing a very interesting narrative develop overall with this. Now, within the crypto space, and I have to say it's so different than any other space, because even within politics, pure politics, even though you have the commentary and you have people within social media digging through and providing feedback on it, the crypto space seems to have upped the ante significantly. I mean, their game is by far probably the best across the board, because you have thousands upon thousands upon thousands of people that seem to be dredging up information, digging back and saying, you know what, we're not going to put up with this misinformation. We're not going to put up with, the double speak any longer, because if you say X today, but we remember that you said Y, well, we're going to go back and look at Y. And not only are we going to look for why, we're going to bring it up and we're going to compare it to what you're saying today. So we're going to take what you said a couple years ago and we're going to reference it. And we're going to show, based on what the media showed, what your commentary was, what your writings were, what your feedback was. Thousands upon thousands upon thousands of people that are doing this. And it's clearer now, I think, than ever before, because we haven't seen it with any other cases that I know of. And obviously, maybe John Deaton and many of the other attorneys out there, Jeremy Hogan, Filant, they could reference and say, have we seen other cases that could be comparable to this, where you have retail investors, supporters of this space or of a space, coming out in the numbers that they're coming out with and dredging up researched information? And again, typically, if there's a massive court case, those are the ones that are, you're expecting the reporters or the attorneys and their teams to go back and research. But now look at what happened when they were trying to pass the big infrastructure bill, right? So you had thousands, tens of thousands of people who are calling and ringing their phones off the hook, to where they basically crashed the phone lines of the U.S. Senate, because people were fed up with this notion that they were trying to cram crypto legislation into the back end of a bill without it being very clear. Nobody had any very, significant clarity on the crypto legislation, where crypto legislation should be able to stand on its own. Crypto legislation should not be, minced and packaged into something that it isn't, especially if it's just some hidden agenda item where they're trying to, pull one over on everybody. Maybe they won't notice that this, this legislation is being added to thousands and thousands of pages. People aren't going to see it. And now people did see it. People researched it, and it delayed that bill by days, right? And now we see also with this, the pending case, and we've discussed this so many times and referenced this point over and over and over again, but it's so critical to kind of hammer this idea home, that you have 65,000 individuals and growing that are supporting John Deaton and this case of the XRP holders versus the SEC, because it is a global narrative. Obviously, right now, we see the whole market entering a bear phase, and whether it's temporary or longer term, midterm, nobody knows yet. But the point being is that the valuation of a digital asset was suppressed due to the action of the SEC. And this is how we see John Deaton, as they packaged the claim against the SEC. Now, again, from as a political entity and these representatives, these appointed and hired in representatives of the SEC and the SEC as a body at large, as well as other political organizations, have not seen. It's almost unprecedented that we would see the level or the sheer volume of people that are coming out in defense of the crypto space, on behalf of the crypto space, against these individuals. Now, we discussed this yesterday a little bit with the brick and mortars. And as we move into kind of this new financial infrastructure of the digital asset space, and the titans of yesterday, meaning the brick and mortars, won't necessarily be within the leadership of the titans of tomorrow. And this is representation exactly of that, right? There's almost like this panic, or even if it's not a panic in the beginning stages, what they're trying to do is suppress the new asset class. They see what's happening and they try to take a dominant position over it by issuing different statement and kind of mincing words over it and trying to direct the narrative based on what they desire the outcome to be. And what's happened is that they've never dealt with a scenario that the retail investors are the ones, by far at this point, are the ones that are directing the narrative, that are pushing things in a specific direction. Now, you might have specific entities. There's massive whales out there, and the crypto space at large may be still very tied to the ebb and flow of Bitcoin. As Bitcoin ramps up, so too does the rest of the market. When Bitcoin goes down, so too does the rest of the market. Even though there is some separation, there's been a huge amount of development within the crypto space. And then we go back to these individuals and we say, hey, with these individuals within the political infrastructure, who's, we know as a matter of fact that there are lobbyists out there for many of the major, brick and mortars that will, pull or hold sway over the movement of many of these entities, especially within Congress, whether it's the Senate or the House. That's where they get their money from, right? They get their money from the lobbyist organization. They get money from special interests. They get money from corporations. We also see that many of these individuals that hold high-level political positions get hired into corporate institutions. They get into the corporate space. Now, I'm not going to fault them for that. I'm not going to fault the corporations for wanting to hire them, and I'm not going to fault those that are in the higher political political position. I'm trying to that have a higher political position. I'm not going to fault them for taking these jobs that are paying them who knows how many millions of dollars. They've acquired a specific stature within politics, within government, and they are kind of in the know, right? The echelon, right? They're kind of in the know. And now, obviously, from a corporate perspective, you want these individuals. If you want these individuals, it works well for everybody. Not saying good, bad, indifferent, whatever, but that's kind of what happens, right? So anyhow, let's go back to this and dig in a little bit more. Where'd my mouse go? Here we go. Okay, here we go. Let's go back to this. Here we go.
So just to be clear, for example, a book of the month club that we're joining on an ICO, or a golf club membership, we're not expecting any financial gain there. That would not be considered a security. Am I right?
Fair enough. If you have that system up and running, if you have someone promoting the next golf course and is selling interests, and the architect and the land and all the key items aren't there yet, and you buy 25 memberships, that may be an investment. You're looking for a return on that. On the other hand, if you go down the road and you buy an investment, or you buy a membership in a club that's up and running and you just use it to play a round of golf, that's probably just a good old golf membership.
You and Jay Clayton, the head of the SEC, have been very adamant that you are not going to change the definition of securities laws to fit this new technology. One of the points you made in your speech was the concern about the fraud that was out there in this space. Are you seeing significant fraud?
We do certainly see cases where people are trying to repackage an investment opportunity as a coin or a token and saying that somehow because it's labeled that way, it's not an investment security. And in many cases, we have seen people doing that where the underlying enterprise is not a solid investment opportunity. It's been misrepresented. So we do see fraud, and we do see it being packaged up this way. On the other hand, we think there's an enormous amount of promise in the distributed ledger technology and blockchain technology, and we meet frequently with legitimate parties here really trying to do something innovative, and we're trying to help them navigate the securities laws as they do so.
Now that's all really interesting. He wants to help. They see the benefit. However, how is it that we move from this position, what he referenced in the beginning? How do we move from that position whenever this video was made a couple years ago, and then you fast forward to now? That's interesting. I mean, it's like, what exactly is going on? That's what we want to reference. So let me pull this up. This is going to be interesting. So this is from John Deaton. Okay, so we went through that, we watched that, and now we're going to move on to John Deaton and see how he digs in and really explains everything. So I like this crypto bantha. Sounds like XRP passes the golf course test. And that's I like that. I like this idea. Let's use his terminology. Let's use the golf course test instead of the Howey test. If we go to the Howey test with oranges, people like talking about golf a lot more than oranges. So oranges are good to eat, but golfing seems to attract a lot more people. So let's use the golf course test. I kind of like that. Bullish is saying we need to move the narrative back to the fact that we aren't looking at anything that's happened within Ripple. We are all looking at activities of SEC representatives. That is the real story. And he's saying this is the real story. And that's exactly it. What's up, Silverback? So, yeah, I mean, this is, it's crazy, right? So we really have to identify and really put the narrative back on track. And that's one of the things that I think within the crypto space, we're definitely seeing, a positive in that movement where the crypto space at large, the crypto community, I should say, is pushing the narrative, back on track. And this is one thing where you can't have dissension within the ranks. You can't have infighting within the crypto space, because as Ripple and XRP goes, so too does go the rest of the crypto space. So if this SEC outcome where they can bully and gang up on the XRP community and say the things that they've said and misrepresent things that they've said, and if you can allow, certain representatives within government that are elected to sit back and push forward a narrative that crypto is only being utilized for illicit activity, when obviously within the crypto space and the blockchain space, there's a significant amount of development and growth as an overall that is bettering not just the technology, but those individuals that are going and getting actively involved in the technology. The amount of knowledge that people have acquired during the past few years investing in crypto is tremendous. Most people, if they're investing in stocks, if you go and invest in Amazon, or you go and invest in Microsoft or Apple or Google, you're not going to go and try to really identify and understand the fundamentals of the technology that these guys are producing. You may like, Apple product. You may like Google product. You may like Microsoft products. You might shop with Amazon, and you look at that benefit. But when you get into the crypto space and you look at how expansive it is, and so many new adopters within the space, whether it's from an investment perspective or if it's from a builder's perspective, are doing as much as they can to really understand and learn about this new innovative asset class and the direction that things are moving in. And we saw and see so many individuals that are new to investing. Now, if the SEC wants to help and step forward and protect retail investors, then why not directly engage with those that are building in the space and engage with those that are investing in the space? Why is it that they automatically take this this elitist stature where they believe they know so much more than everybody else? They want to provide some sort of path towards regulatory clarity, yet they're not looking at all of the benefit and positives, all of the pros. They look at the illicit activity. They look at the fact that there's fraud. Now, if there was only fraud within the crypto space, if it was brand new, I would say, hey, maybe you have a point. However, we see corruption, we see fraud, we see Ponzi schemes within the regular economy that has dealt with stocks. We saw what happened with Madoff and how many people lost billions of dollars. I mean, it's amazing how much money was lost with Madoff. And now, if we look at crypto, they want to apply some logic that all of that stuff hasn't happened. We haven't seen any type of duplicitous activity from banks that end up getting fined almost every year. Banks are getting fined for some overstep, and they slap them on the wrist and they send them back to do what they need to do. Yet people were hurt in the meantime. And so now they look at crypto and they say, well, it's only being used for illicit activity. And they again are spinning this false narrative. So there's so much to do, so much to look at, and educating, on this level is significant, because as this crypto community expands, the crypto community is what's now pushing the new narrative, creating the new narrative, and educating those within government to the new narrative. And that becomes really important. So now let me pull up these tweets from John Deaton. Let's see if we can get it right. Here we go. Didn't come up. There we go. Okay. So John Deaton says absolute, conclusive, and irrefutable proof. Now his point here, he says Bill Hinman intentionally misled the public as director of corporate finance while at the SEC. We watched the clip, and now we're going to read the brief that follows. Okay, so here we go. And we're going to read this. This is in order. So December 13th, 2017, Hinman had a meeting with Ethereum Joseph and Consensus and lawyers from Sullivan and Cromwell, Clayton's law firm. The next day, December 14th, Matt Korb of the Consensus with lawyers from Sullivan and Cromwell stated that they were building an alliance with the SEC. So go back not that long ago. And this is kind of in that period of time when we saw a massive ramp up, right? A massive ramp up in the crypto space. End of 17, beginning of 18. 6 weeks later, on January 25th, 2018, Clayton meets with Chris Dixon and Anderson Horowitz of 16Z and instructs him to put together a group within the industry and write up a memo. Perkins Coie, a member of the Enterprise Ethereum Alliance, led this group of Ether investors. Now, say, hey, you know what? They want to build the Enterprise Ethereum Alliance. Hey, that's awesome. Let's build it up. But at what expense? What's the expense? Well, obviously, we're seeing some of that. On March 26, 2018, attorney Lowell Ness of Perkins Coie sent Hinman a memo and safe harbor proposal. We've seen the safe harbor proposal come out from Hester Peirce as well. This is a little bit different. But here you have the only crypto asset mentioned in the safe harbor is Ethereum. Just one. Interesting. 2 days later, on the 28th of 2018, Ether investors meet secretly with Hinman asking for a regulatory free pass. April 23rd, SEC again meets with Lubin and Consensus. May 12th, Lubin stated that he was making great strides with the regulators. May 24th, Lubin claimed he would he could issue tokens in ways detailed in Hinman's speech, which hasn't been delivered yet. June 8th, consensus meets with SEC again. Lubin commented how the market needed the SEC to scare some of the projects away. Now, I would like to see that part there. So, hopefully Deaton has some information directly from June 8th to this meeting and exactly the exact comments from Lubin on how the market needed the SEC directly to scare these other projects away. I'd like to see that information. 6 days later, June 14th, Hinman gave a speech and declared that ongoing sales of Ether were not in violation of U.S. security laws. So it's amazing, right? It's amazing because then John Deaton says, incredibly, he then goes on to CNBC with Bob Pisani and says, we at the SEC. Now, it's not just says we, but look at that clip that we just saw. It was even labeled SEC. Don't see a third-party promoter when looking at Ether. For that statement to be truthful, he must have been blindfolded during all of his meetings with the co-founder of Ethereum and founder of Consensus. So here they're looking for, which is exactly, why they would have been looking for the safe harbor, which is exactly why they're asking for a regulatory free pass for ETH, for Ethereum. Now, once again, they're picking and choosing, trying to decide winners from losers. Now, we've seen this narrative multiple times where they try to pick winners from losers. And is that the right role, for government officials to make that determination, to be meeting with private enterprise and deciding based on these meetings as to whether or not, one entity, one company should benefit while another entity loses? Or do you let the market dictate and decide? Now, we fast forward a couple years, and obviously there was a lot of silence around all of this, a lot of silence. And it wasn't until December of 2020 when we saw this massive lawsuit drop, by Jay Clayton, SEC files against Ripple, claiming that XRP is a security. Oh, in fact, they initially make their statement saying that they were selling an unregistered security. And then, by the way, XRP was an unregistered security at the time they sold to current sales. Anything being sold currently, including the secondary market, including retail. And that's exactly the point. When we had John Deaton on here with us, that's exactly the point when John Deaton said, hey, rewind and let's see what's going on. Let's see exactly what's going on. And that is when this whole suit, XRP community against the SEC, began to breathe its first breath, takes its first, breath towards life. And now it's developed into 65,000 people plus strong. It's amazing. It really is amazing, right? And this is by far, you see the crypto community coming together, which is massive. It's massive. Seeing all of this. So obviously there's a ton of commentary that goes on from this point. A lot of great feedback on John Deaton's tweet. But let me move on, because from this, let me pull this up. Mr. BXRP, actually, one of his response to John Deaton here on his tweet, I think is, spot on, which is, we is not equal to my personal opinion. And they used we a lot. They even used SEC, if we remember that short clip that we just watched. They used SEC in that lower third. So you can't use SEC in the lower third and then say it's my personal opinion. You can't say we and then say later after you're caught, oh, sorry, that was my personal opinion. You can't have individuals working for a major a major group within government, and then say when they go out and they get brought in front of other groups to speak, and they know who their employee is, they know who they represent, so they say, oh well, you work for the government, oh you work for the SEC, oh maybe you're a commissioner with the SEC, maybe you're a chair of the SEC, maybe you hold a high position with the SEC. Well, this is exactly why we're inviting you to come and speak, because otherwise we wouldn't have you here to speak. We don't care about your personal opinion. We only care about your personal opinion because of your employment with the SEC and because of your position with the SEC, not just some random position, because of your specific position. And then when you come in front of the group or you get in front of media and you use that term, it changes everything. And that's the dynamic. And, I'm glad John Deaton is on it. John Deaton is just, hammering away over and over and over again. People within this space, have been just outstanding, bringing information to the forefront, and it's been great. So now I want to kind of sideline over here. This is the Federal Reserve, the Fed paper. Now they're talking about CBDCs, right? The central bank digital currency being potentially better than crypto. Okay. So here we go. Oh, wait a minute. Let's pull this up. Here we go. Let's go full screen. See if it works. Aha. Now let's hit play.
Paper on the central bank digital currency being issued at this time by the Federal Reserve, in which they say that a CBDC could offer a range of benefits and risks. Don't come to any particular conclusion about it, but they say it could offer the general public a risk-free digital money that is free from credit risk, free from liquidity risk, would not replace existing digital money, but would be an addition to it. The Fed will not proceed, as Chair Powell has said, with a CBDC without support of Congress and the executive branch, ideally with an authorizing law. Let me go through.
This is important. This is really important right here. So what they're referencing here is that the Fed will not move forward. They will not move forward with a CBDC, with a central bank digital currency, without full support of Congress, full support of the executive branch. Now, as we move into 2022, we're going to see a complete departure of Congress from this administration. The writing is on the wall. We know that there's a huge number of representatives that are leaving. They're not running for re-election because they understand that you're going to see the House and the Senate be overturned. And so now when that happens, you're going to have an executive branch that really has almost no power. And so once that happens, trying to get something like this through with a CBDC is probably going to be extremely difficult. To go with a digital dollar. And there's going to be, this isn't something that they roll out overnight. And I believe that, although the Fed might want to push for it, they want to push this narrative that it's better, there needs to be complete discourse over this and really dig into the reality of what it is. So let's go. Let's play a little bit more. It's not that long of a clip.
Quickly, what the paper sees as the benefits. It would provide an electronic form of central bank money to the general public, households, and businesses, faster and cheaper payments, and expanding consumer access to the financial system.
Now, it's interesting. So they try to say that it's better than crypto, but let's see if we can back up a smidge. So providing an electric form of central bank money to help. Right now, if your money is kind of in there in the system, it's almost digital at this point. It's not, a complete digital asset. It's not a digital currency. You're not going to have the faster and cheaper payment, faster payment. But there's still an element here where it's basically a digital representation of your fiat, and they want to do away with all fiat. So it's really kind of a disruption in the overall, idea of decentralization. So central bank digital currency, central bank. Okay. But they want to expand consumer access to the financial system. Now, that's great. Expanding consumer access to the financial systems. They could do that right now, but they don't. Through the complete decentralization, what we are seeing, and we're seeing with cryptocurrency, we're seeing that there are individuals around the world that are expanding and joining the broader economy. So, anyhow, let's see if they can expand consumer access to financial system. What else? What else are they going to do here? Let's see.
Financial system. Many, of course, are underbanked in this country. The risk, well, it could affect the financial market structure, cost and availability of credit, because it could disintermediate the banks if they did it the wrong way, and also how monetary policy works. Now,
so these are obviously risks. Can they affect the financial market structure? Cost and so how is it that if you digitize your currency, you take away paper fiat, is it going to change the financial market structure? Possibly. What are they referencing though? What do they reference as the financial market structure? The cost and availability of credit. Not sure how that's going to impact anything. I mean, these are brilliant guys here on CNBC, supposed to be, but I'm looking at it as a risk. Maybe there's someone out there that can explain why, why would the cost and availability of credit change as a risk if you're moving away from fiat to a digital representation of fiat? There's no difference. It's a digital representation of fiat. It's supposed to be 1-for-1 to fiat. If you create 100 CBDC dollars, you have to get rid of 100 paper dollars. That would be the idea. That would be the direct digital representation of the fiat. You're not going to have both fiat and CBDCs running in parallel to each other, and both have, if the whole system, let's say, had 1 million paper dollars, all of a sudden you're going to double it and have also 1 million CBDCs, and you're going to degrade the overall valuation of your dollars by having twice as many. They're gonna burn and get rid of paper. So it's this idea is the efficacy of monetary. So again, how is monetary policy? How is that going to be significantly adjusted? There's other elements that we have to worry about. What about government control and monitoring of the money you spend? Where is that as a risk? I think that's a major that's a major risk. What about having social scores like in China? There's social scoring. What's the risk of the digital yuan for regional markets? Who controls the ebb and flow? Because it's not a decentralized asset, digital asset. It's a centralized digital asset. So who's controlling the ebb and flow of that digital denomination? So the efficacy of monetary policy, what is the true disruption to the domestic holders of that digital currency? Is it the Fed that is going to have control and oversight over your individual spending, or is it the government? So, that to me is interesting because they're not addressing it specifically. And that's something that has to be addressed. Here we go.
Protected,
so
intermediated.
This is good.
You don't do business.
So these are good points here. I'm glad they brought it up. This is what privacy has to be protected, intermediated, and identity verified. So so they want to identify, you have to have your identity verified. So again, if you're spending your fiat, how do you protect your privacy if they're also verifying your identity? How do those two things go hand in hand?
Right with the central bank, you may do it with digital wallets and identity verified, so you can protect against criminal activity, among other things. Paper's meant to begin a debate.
So they want to protect against criminal activity. Again, whether it's crypto or whether it's a digital dollar, or a fiat currency, paper dollar, how do you protect against criminal activity with paper dollars? I guess you can't. So if you move to digital, what's the difference at that point? Whether the criminal activity is being completed with a digital representation of the dollar or the paper dollar. I mean, it just that it there's it's just like you want to pull your hair out. It's just crazy, right? It just makes no sense. They're just putting a bunch of stuff up on the screen and making it sound good. I haven't taken one breath, XRP New Zealand, not even one, just like nonstop. Hang on. So what else we got here? So that was interesting. Anyhow, let me get rid of this from the screen. That was a lot of fun to discuss. We can dig in a lot deeper later, but let me pull this one over because Pat Toomy, Senator Pat Toomy had some commentary. And I want to go into this because let's see what his commentary is on this digital dollar idea. Now, Pat Toomey has been a big proponent of blockchain and cryptocurrency. So let's see what he has to say here. Let's see. It's not a video. Going to some tweets. Cryptocurrency, digital assets, and their underlying technologies offer tremendous potential benefits. As such, I'm glad the Federal Reserve has constructively contributed to the necessary ongoing public discussion regarding the issuance of a CBDC. So, he comes out right away. Crypto, digital assets, their technology, the benefit. And obviously it's good. We want to have more conversation, more discourse. Let's say it was a 40-page report that was out. But here, I'm encouraged the report acknowledges the need for clear support from Congress prior to the issuance of a CBDC. I agree with Pat Toomey 100%. 100%. It has to go to Congress. Same as, the securities idea, the SEC, and whether or not a digital asset is a security or not. Also, we need a little bit of clarity coming from Congress. So the report also rightfully recognizes that the Fed offering retail accounts is not only a terrible idea, but also impermissible by law. Spot on. So again, this is a good direction, and Pat Toomey brings it out and immediately jumps on it, which is great, just outstanding. While mentioning the importance of CBDC privacy, I'm concerned the Fed doesn't clearly explain how it would protect consumer data, which is what we were just talking about, right? So how do you have to make sure you know their identity and you want to protect their privacy. There's also a question in my mind whether the report implies that a CBDC would not allow for direct peer-to-peer transactions. This is fundamental. So if you're going to convert to a central bank digital currency, if Mr. Smith wants to give money to Mr. Jones in a peer-to-peer transaction, they should be able to do so, and they should be able to do it privately without it being tracked, without worrying about KYC, without worrying about AML. You know why? Because there is no KYC and AML with fiat currency. Because we have to assume, which I know if you say assume, you're making an ass out of you and me. I get it, but sometimes we have to use those words. We have to use assumption. I had a history teacher when I was a senior in high school, and it's always stuck with me because I remember saying that. Remember saying, I assume. And he said, don't ever say assume. I said, why not? And he said, because when you say that, all you're doing is making an ass out of you and me. And I've never forgotten that. And every time that word is getting ready to come out of my mouth, I always think about it and immediately triggers. I'm like, I hesitate to say it. I hesitate to say assume because you can't assume. But in this scenario, so anyhow, Today's report is an important step by the Fed in acknowledging the permanence of crypto and their underlying technologies. I look forward to working with the Federal Reserve and my colleagues in Congress to consider the authorization of a properly designed CBDC. Now, I think there's maybe some conflict here, maybe some misunderstanding here, that the Fed, even though they acknowledge the permanence of crypto and the technology, the CBDC could potentially be, the threat in all of this. So, all right, Apex, here we go. Tom Emmer has a good proposed bill out there. There's a lot of great things that are happening. Long shot of government should not control money creation. So let's get rid of that. Let me pull up some of your comments here. Apex is saying a U.S. CBDC will not be a crypto, period. It's not. No DLT, no transparency, no privacy. The Fed simply wants to that's all it is. 100%. It's programmable money, which is the digital yuan. The digital yuan is not decentralized. It's not transparent. There's no privacy. There's no protection of your identity. So what is it? What happens if they implement social scoring? What if they say one day, well, your social score fell? Or maybe they say, like we've heard from some of these agencies out there, some of these governments, where they're attacking over the health concerns. They're trying to remove individuals from society. Think about this. In France, in Australia, in Quebec, they're trying to remove individuals from society. They're limiting their movement. They're limiting whether they can shop. They're limiting whether they can work. We're not talking about lepers. We're not talking about sick individuals. We're not talking about dangerous individuals. We're talking about people that decided to make a choice based on their freedom of choice, their freedom of action, their freedom of living, which to go unhindered by a controlling government entity, by a communist regime. So think about it from this perspective, that if you have programmable money, what type of control at that point they would have over your lives. We're not talking about privately issued credit cards, a Visa, a MasterCard, or an American Express, that the government would have to take unprecedented action in order to have your credit cards shut off for doing nothing, right? But now consider this idea that even within the banking space right now, if they're trying to push this narrative that you can't leave your house, you can't go to work, you can't go to a store. Now, if you have programmable, centralized, controlled money, what's the next level? What's the next thing that could potentially happen? We've seen the worst of humankind coming out of countries like Australia and parts of Canada and France. The worst of humankind, the worst within government nature, right? So absolute power corrupts absolutely. And Austria, the UK actually, England at least, pulled back. So Germany, but for sure Austria, right? This is the worst. Putin came out the other day and said that the United States is the new Soviet Union. So what does all that have to do with crypto? We're talking about CBDCs. Central bank digital currencies are not decentralized. They're not crypto. There's no crossover or intersect with cryptocurrency. It's kind of crazy. But to Pat Toomey's point, you need to have all of those protective mechanisms have to be in place. And there could be zero infringement on those protections and on those freedoms. Zero. So Reggie said it reminds me of Saturday morning. It sounds like a Saturday morning rant, doesn't it? It's great, but it's crazy, right? So here we have the SEC v. Ripple. We have the XRP community versus the SEC. We've got all these things that are happening on the periphery, and then we have all this amazing stuff, all these amazing things that are happening, all this, the technology, the financial assets, the financial vehicles, the financial products that are being created within this decentralized ecosystem of cryptocurrency. I mean, it's amazing, right? It really is amazing. And when we look at what the governments do to help people, what do people do to help people? What do people do to help themselves? What does this technology, this cryptocurrency technology, what does it do? What can it do to help individuals pull themselves up? It's amazing. We watched, I don't know how many videos ago. It's been a while, maybe a month, 2 months ago. I can't remember exactly. We're talking about all this. We found a video, and I think it was a farmer in Kenya or a farmer in Nigeria or somewhere in Africa. And we're talking about one of the developing nations over there, right? Developing economies with an opportunity right now to grab onto, to latch onto cryptocurrency, to latch onto blockchain, right? The last place we want blockchain technology to grow out of is, honestly, is Silicon Valley and San Francisco. I don't want any of this technology to come out of San Francisco or Silicon Valley. Zero. Well, maybe a little bit. I don't mind if there's a little bit. I want the U.S. to have a leadership position in this space. I want to see cryptocurrency and blockchain build and develop in Miami, in the rest of Florida, maybe Tampa, Texas, maybe some other states, Wyoming. I want to see technology coming out of Africa and South America and all these amazing places. And so anyhow, so this video, so a farmer, right? He's farming and he's using cryptocurrency to buy things that he needs in order to farm. And he's selling his crops using cryptocurrency. Now, with cryptocurrency coming in, right? Imagine before, maybe he's using fiat. It's all paper, right? It's all paper exchange. There's a whole economies that survive strictly on paper money. So now all of a sudden, this individual over in Kenya or Nigeria, wherever he was, is exchanging goods, exchanging his product for cryptocurrency. That cryptocurrency could be XRP. In reality, it could be Ethereum. It could be Bitcoin. It could be Solana. It could be XDC. It could be, I don't know, one of the thousands of cryptocurrencies out there. Maybe he's buying and selling in Shiba or Dogecoin. Who knows? Probably not Ethereum because the gas fees would crush his business in one transaction. So probably not Ethereum. But, you know, think about it. Right now he's in crypto. He's collected his product. He's collected his payments in cryptocurrency. And now he takes his cryptocurrency through one of the multitude of exchanges and he stakes his crypto for yields. He's earning high rates of interest on his money. He's creating passive income. He finds a way to utilize the collateral of his asset to borrow more money. And at some point, as we see these vehicles expand, he's going to find a way to take loans to expand his business strictly in the crypto space. But here's a guy that might have been strictly in fiat that's now moving into joining the economy. Hans Loaded, a Kenyan coffee farmer. Right. It was a Kenyan coffee farmer. So amazing. Just amazing. I mean, it's astonishing to me. That's the benefit. You know, forget about what Elizabeth Warren and, you know, all those others said about Jenny Yellen and all these other naive commentary on cryptocurrency when we see the true value that it's brought to people all over the world, all over the world. And so what we're seeing within this blockchain and crypto space, again, is an expansion, and it's a complete diversion. I don't know, split off. I said this yesterday, use the same word. But anyhow, but it's being diverted away from the way it used to be. So you think about everything happened in Silicon Valley, in San Francisco. You had the software battles, and then you had the dot-com boom. It all kind of circumvented in one area, right? In one geography, very tight geography. And now, all over the world, blockchain is everywhere and anywhere. And you can utilize it. James Rule XRP earns in XRP. He gets paid in XRP. If you can get paid at your salary in XRP, that's great. Forget about the fraud mayor up in New York that is taking his paycheck in Bitcoin. Come to find out, he can't get paid in Bitcoin. So you know what happened? He has to take his paycheck. They have to convert the whole paycheck into cryptocurrency, into Bitcoin. That's not getting paid in Bitcoin because they can't get paid in Bitcoin, apparently. So now all of a sudden, that doesn't make any sense. I don't care once you get paid in fiat. I don't care where you invest your money. If you want to invest it in crypto, that's awesome. But come on, let's look at reality. Let's look at reality. James Rule XRP getting paid in XRP. There's athletes getting paid in digital asset. Digital asset, can be a mode of transfer of payment. It can be. It's also an amazing technology that exists. I don't expect that we're going to run out and go buy pizza tomorrow using XRP, but if I was getting paid 100% in a digital asset, I would have my credit card also, maybe, from Uphold or from wherever, and I would go and buy, and it would have an automatic conversion from my digital asset, to the fiat currency of wherever I am. It's amazing, right? That's it. So anyhow, there was a bunch of other things that I wanted to talk about tonight. And one of them was El Salvador's president says Bitcoin is really cheap and buy the dip. So that's coming from the president of El Salvador, amongst all the other things that are being said about it. But you guys are amazing. You guys realize that we stream 6 days a week? 6, really, for real. 6 days a week. And if you go to onthechain.io, you can even see it. Onthechain.io right there. Go check it out, onthechain.io. You can see when we stream 6 days a week, Sunday through Thursday, 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. Sunday through Thursday, I said that. And every Saturday morning, 8 a.m., you can go over here, you can click on podcast, and you can go back and say, whoa, look at all the you can go and listen to it in audio format. Go back and you can search out interviews that we did, which is awesome. Go back and say, hey, I want to hear more from Eleanor and see maybe I missed something. I want to go back, maybe that AMA we did with John Deaton, maybe the Vagabond guys, maybe go see that meetup with Matt Hamilton, or hear from Tom Emmer, Congressman Tom Emmer. We got, tons and tons of great interviews over here. So go check that out. And also want to give a quick shout out to Tony over at Thinking Crypto for getting his channel back. I meant to say that first thing. That's what I wanted to say, but big kudos to him. And YouTube, shame on you guys again for saying it was accidental. You guys deleted our channel the same way you deleted his channel, and there was no difference in the commentary. Oh, it was an accident. It wasn't an accident. If our channel got deleted, his channel got deleted, and now we're back because there was nothing bad about it, right? But now it's awesome. Super happy that he's back up. It's outstanding. And by far, and what I always say here with all you guys here joining us day in and day out, we have by far the best and the brightest in the crypto space, in the YouTube crypto space, right here with us each night. Appreciate all of you guys. You guys are amazing. And we'll be back tomorrow night with Chip. He promises he'll be back. So be back here tomorrow night, co-hosting again, the two of us, and we'll check you guys out on the next one. I'm out.
Are you down with OTC? Please like, subscribe, and click the bell to be notified when the next video drops.